Hello, Herkimer County. This is Michelle Hummel, the Executive Director of the Herkimer County Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today with our Executive Director.
Yeah. No, director or producer?
Oh, that's
Come on,
right.
what is this?
He's a producer. I make up new titles for him.
Director, I'd be telling you guys what to say. All
That's
right.
true.
So
That's true.
yeah. No, I'm not going to do that.
And you know we can't hold me back. So
This is true. This is true. All right.
Absolutely.
I'll let you run with it now.
okay. So anyway, Dave Warner's here.
Yeah, I'm here in the house.
Yes. And I'm also here today with the MOVAC chief, Don Kane, and the assistant chief, Robert Perry. Yes.
Yes.
I apologize.
Good
I'm
morning.
stumbling a little
Geez, you
bit.
should
over
have. You
that.
should have written those notes
I
down.
should
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
See,
yeah.
this is what happens when
Yeah.
I wing it. What I do want to start with, and I'm sorry, I should have had this out before, and it's
Uh-oh.
I can't say I don't bake because I do. I try. But I stopped this morning on the way here to Copper Cafe in
Oh,
Ilion, and these are cookies. So I
Oh,
wanted
thank you.
to.
Cookies.
These are probably the best cookies
Oh, no.
you'll have.
Thank you.
They're like their specialty. Dave, I brought some for you and Deborah too.
Oh, nice.
And
There are perks to doing this show.
there are some kind.
Right?
I'm going to show this.
Oh.
This is not your average chocolate chip cookie. This has peanut butter in it, oatmeal as well,
Wow.
and chocolate chips, of course.
Of
but
course.
I like to stop and bring some goodies when
It
I
looks
can.
really
So
good.
anyway, the Copper Cafe is open 5 days a week in the morning for lunch, for breakfast and lunch, and they are starting to do some catering. So I just
Nice.
wanted to make sure I said that. since
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Cookies look great.
absolutely.
I'll let
So
you know later what they taste like.
Anyway, back to MOVAC. So what you do is amazing. I mean, I've toured your facility a number of times now. I've seen your equipment, super impressed, and I know what you do. I mean, ultimately, you're saving lives. So, it takes a special person to be able to do that. So that said, what counties or where are your territories?
Go ahead.
Oh,
They
on the spot today.
don't know where they are.
No, we cover a vast majority of territory. We have Dowsville, Salisbury. We assist in Little Falls a lot too. From Herkimer, Mohawk, German Flats, all the way now into Frankfurt. We took a majority of their territory between mutual aid agreements and their ambulance going out. So we have very many townships. I don't know how many exactly though.
Oh,
Yeah, we are the largest ambulance provider between the counties of Herkimer, Oneida, and Madison. We employ approximately 50 people.
okay.
We run, what are we up to now? 9 ambulances?
We have 8
Wow.
ambulances with 2 ambulance vans that we run in Syracuse, and then 2 other specialized vehicles, a fly car and a plow truck, and then rehab trailer and a gator. So
Wow.
So yeah,
How many calls a month do you guys do?
last time I talked to the CQI deputy as of yesterday, we were at about 470 for the month of October.
470. That's
470.
amazing.
So
And
we're very busy. We're, I think, right now on track to be about 5,600 calls this year.
wow.
And that's a record for us.
That's simply amazing. So most of our listenership, to be quite honest with you, if you call an ambulance, it's going to be you gentlemen that show up.
It's likely us.
Mhm.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So and that's something huge to think about. I live in Ilion, so we do have an ambulance
Correct.
service there, which they do a great job. But that's Ilion, obviously. So what you do is just so much larger and impacting so many more people. So I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on today too.
Oh,
Appreciate that.
yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Well, you're welcome anytime. One of the things I wanted to talk about and what sparked this conversation was when Elise Stefanik was in town, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, and we toured your facility, and I was getting some information on just how many calls you take and your reimbursement rates. I was a little bit taken back, slightly horrified by hearing some of that. So could you please share with our listeners what some of your reimbursement looks like?
Sure. So our reimbursement is based off of insurance, medical insurance. So predominantly, a lot of people have private insurance. If you are thankful enough to have a job that provides you with some kind of insurance package, it's likely a private payer that reimburse medical expenses for you. When it comes to private pay insurance, our rates are relatively okay. Unfortunately, there is a large percentage of the county that is on governmental insurance, whether it's Medicare or Medicaid. And that constitutes, believe it or not, about 90% of our patients that we see.
Wow.
Is that type of insurance. And between the two, they could be marked down upwards of 90%. So if it's a Medicaid patient, or a Medicaid individual that's requesting 911 services in transport by ambulance, let's say that it costs MOVAC to do the call at $1,000. We'd be lucky if we see $80 as far as a reimbursement.
That's
That-
insane.
Yeah,
That's
that is
insane.
absolutely insane. And for those folks that are listening, I want to hit on some of these things. So you might be thinking, and we're going to have people listening, oh, $1,000 for a call, it doesn't cost $1,000. I want to mention the cost of the equipment that you are
Correct.
using.
Yes.
That is, I mean, an ambulance alone. What would you say an ambulance alone? This is without equipment, folks.
So an ambulance, we operate a couple different style ambulances. We operate a van style, that's a Ford Transit body, and then we operate more of a box style ambulance. What would you call that?
Yeah, pretty much a box style, an E450
Modular
chassis. Yeah.
is what they call it. So those two types, they range tremendously when it comes to cost. So for example, the van style, and we have 4 of those, on average is about $109,000 out the door. And that's with lights and sirens in it. And that's just the ambulance, $109,000.
And that's a van.
Just the van.
Mhm.
And then the box style on average is about $200,000 out the door. So it depends on what ambulance type we're purchasing. We purchase those 2 different types because there's a variety of use that we expect to get out of them. And I can touch on that later. But then the equipment that those ambulances, they don't come stocked. So the equipment that you have to put in them, the stretcher is about $15,000. A cardiac monitor is about $40,000. The insurance to provide the service is astronomical. Payroll, supplies, all of those things add up to equate to about $300,000, give or take, for one vehicle to be put on the road.
And I want to just hit on what you just said, just so that it's really sinking into our listeners. So when they come and, they come to your rescue, these guys, the guys or girls, whoever they are, they come to your home and they come in and they help your grandfather, or they help you, or somebody's having a heart attack, and they put you in, and you think they're just maybe giving you a ride and, doing some CPR type things. And what they're in reality, just to even keep you safe, that monitor is $40,000 and the insurance. So keep this in mind, folks. If something does happen, and let's say, God forbid, you can't save that person, someone may turn around and try to sue you.
Correct.
Right.
And you need to be protected against that. So it's just an amazing thing that you're doing, and you have to worry about those things, even though you're trying your best. And I can't imagine how much liability insurance you must have to carry.
It's pretty high. The exact figure, I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's pretty high. We have to carry malpractice insurance, just like any physician's office or any doctor or any agency that's in healthcare would have to carry. So with us, there's the likelihood of problems, because the environment that we're in is unpredictable. We're responding sometimes to shootings, to stabbings. So it's a very unpredictable, unforgiving environment. It's emergency services.
Yeah. Have you guys figured the cost per call? I mean, we talk about the fixed costs of getting an ambulance, $300,000, $40,000 for the monitor, but every time you go out the door, do you know what that costs?
Yeah, it's probably about $1,000.
Okay, all right.
And
Just to
that's
hop
just
in
to go out the door.
turn the ignition.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's about $1,000. And a good example, I guess this wouldn't be a good example, but it's just something that's worth mentioning, is one piece of equipment that we have on the ambulance. It's what's called a life band. And it's this band that attaches to a machine that we have that's called a hands-free CPR machine. So whenever somebody suffers a cardiac arrest, you have to do chest compressions. That's what brings these people back to life. This band goes on this machine and provides chest compressions. This band is obviously disposable. It's only a one-time use item. That band alone is about $200.
Wow.
And I reference that because if we were to transport a governmentally insured individual that suffered a cardiac arrest, we don't even make the money back to replace that band.
Wow.
Is the final tally for the reimbursement.
So how are you surviving then?
I
mean, if you're
hard
not
work.
getting the insurance,
Yeah.
how are you living?
There's very,
So
the company's very, we have our board president, Greg Eisenhut, who's very active. Kelly Brown is our CFO. These guys help tremendously besides our crews. Our crews are running nonstop, getting the rigs out the door, answering calls. With donors and some help we get through. I mean, there's nothing.
Fund development is key.
It's a tough challenge.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah,
So I'm sorry. Back in 1979, MOVAC was founded. MOVAC was organized by a group of very caring individuals that resided throughout Herkimer and realized that there needed to be an ambulance service. And since that date, the organization kind of just expanded and expanded. And back then, human resources were provided by volunteerism. There was no payroll associated with having to run an ambulance. Everybody volunteered their time to do it. The training has changed over the years. People have to work 2-3 jobs sometimes. So volunteerism has kind of gone away. And that's a struggle with ambulance departments across the country, as well as fire departments.
Yeah, fire departments have the same issue. Yeah.
Correct. So I believe, and I could be wrong with this quote, about 8 years back is when MOVAC transitioned over to a payroll, where they had to pay their providers to be on duty. So it's a career, and then we've expanded from there. When I came on board a couple years ago, we were in some financial trouble, and that's where the board kind of reorganized itself, brought me on, brought Robert on, Mr. Kelly Brown on, and we've dug the place through blood, sweat, and tears out of trouble. We found some great donors. We found some great people that care about the mission. We have one of our biggest donor programs is a mailing that we do every year. So we send out a mailing requesting donations, and that's actually earmarked to hit the mail here within the next couple weeks.
Oh, timely, Michelle.
This is
Did you know
perfect.
this? Yeah.
So that brings in a good chunk of change to help us operate and bring in these life-saving pieces of equipment. But our annual budget is about $3.2 million. And the revenue that we have from call volume, from insurance reimbursements, brings in maybe $2.6 million. So we have to bring in
that's a big gap.
that extra cash flow just to operate with donations or other activities. One of the things that we just started that Barrett mentioned on was the Ambulette program. We're looking at alternative ways to bring in revenue because the ambulance, the reimbursements are just so poor. We have to look at other options to make the system work, to be able to provide the service.
So I'm actually going to urge any of our listeners here, or even tell your friends, your family, when you get that postcard in the mail, pay attention to it this year, especially, please. This is so important that it really can no longer go without discussion. We have to bring this to the forefront.
Well, it's a local resource that
It-
we've
it
got to
is.
keep
Yeah.
alive, you know,
Yeah.
because without it,
We're-
who would you call?
Correct.
Right.
There would be so what's nice about our organization is we're a 501c3 charitable nonprofit
Great.
organization, but so all the money that we get goes back into the organization. But there are companies out there that are in the business for a profit. And if we closed, likely what would happen would be one of those companies would step in, and they wouldn't provide Herkimer area with 8 ambulances. They might provide it with 2. And you'd have hour wait times for 911 when you needed an ambulance. That's the reality if we were to close.
Yeah, I listen to the scanner a lot. You guys get called a lot for areas that
Mhm.
Sometimes even
Correct.
Little Falls, like you said,
Yep.
have their own. But if they're out on a call or two, you guys get called to fill in.
Anytime I've ever been there and spent any time, someone has been called out.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's all you got to do is spend a little bit of time in the
Yeah.
station,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know how often you guys are called.
The bell's always ringing.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
it is.
Very
Yeah.
busy there.
We are mutual aid for every department in Herkimer County, so we respond to pretty much everywhere besides Old Forge, obviously, but
That's a
everywhere
long
else.
that's a long haul up
And they
there.
have their own. Yeah.
Knock on wood. Hopefully, we don't have to head up that way.
That's a hike.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to break for just about a minute, and we'll be right back with more information about MOVAC.
Visit My Little Falls and stay connected with the latest news, information, and events in the city and the area. Our mission is to generate interest in the community and connect residents in a more meaningful way by facilitating deeper conversations about how these stories will shape the future of the Mohawk Valley. Join thousands of weekly visitors who stay up to date with feature stories, interviews, videos, our event calendar, and print publication, the Mohawk Valley Express. It's about timely local news for the community, keeping citizens informed about important issues, telling about the people who live and work here, and giving locally owned businesses the opportunity to reach a very targeted audience of locals and tourists alike. It's a whole new form of media-rich content developed specifically for today's mobile lifestyle and listeners. You can download our iOS app in the iTunes Store, listen to our country music streaming radio station, or sign up for a weekly newsletter. Stop by today at mylittlefalls.com. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Michelle Hummel again, and I have the pleasure to sit today with the chief at MOVAC, and his name is Ron Kane. And I'm also told Bear is your nickname. So Robert Perry is
I don't know why.
Yeah, the assistant chief Bear. So,
Yo, Bear.
Easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, it's amazing. We started to get into the funding of this a little bit, and I still want to talk more about your services that just blow my mind, because I do remember a few years ago when there was, you were in financial trouble. And, Greg Eisenhut did come in and step up, and Kelly Brown, both of them are really excellent fund developers.
Correct.
They do a great job, but when you're talking upwards of $1 million, it's a little more than that. So, so are there aside from your funding from reimbursements, are there any other steady sources of income that you have?
So it's mostly reimbursements, and then the donor campaign that I mentioned, the mail-in campaign. We are trying to develop some endowments with some endowment funds. There is occasion where an estate sale will be left with proceeds going towards MOVAC. And then the last big revenue maker is these alternative ideas programs, if you will, that we've put into service. And just hitting back on the example that I mentioned earlier was this ambulette. We operate a non-emergency van that is basically a wheelchair service, and we send that out to Syracuse via a contract that we were awarded with Upstate Medical Center in Syracuse. We have no affiliation with Upstate. Here's Herkimer, an hour away, here's Syracuse. What happened was just a relationship that I established with some managers at Upstate. They were looking for a service to come in outside of the area to provide them with non-emergency transport, and we were able to do that on a contractual fee. So that contractual fee makes us some money, and it provides a service for them. That's just an example of the alternative programs that we're trying to do. Back when we were going through some financial troubles a few years back when I came on board, that's the reason why I came on board. Is Greg Eisenhut was the president. He knew of me. We used to work together. Between him and I used to work together at a company called Mercy Flight. It's a medical helicopter ambulance, basically, that covers New York State with medevac. I spent 20 years working there, kind of honing in my experience with with really sick people and managing things with Mercy Flight. And he asked me to come on board at MOVAC to help out with the turmoil that was occurring there. And so with Greg, myself, Kelly Brown, Robert Little Bear is what we call him. The four of us, I threw in the little.
I was going to say, I don't remember that in the break.
The four of us has really come together and rebuilt the organization. But I still want to make it clear that it is a struggle.
You still have a need.
Every day
yeah,
is
every
a
day,
financial struggle.
Let's get into a little bit more description about that transport service that you're providing. So this is just to the hospital of Upstate Hospital, which is the main campus out in Syracuse. And you transport their folks where?
We transport their folks back home. So they have an issue just like any other issue throughout New York State where they have people that sit in their ER for hours and hours and hours with no transport services home. So what used to happen was there's these small businesses that would do that job, and they were also reimbursed by Medicare and Medicaid. Believe it or not, it was only $20 to take somebody home via Medicaid van. So there's no money to be made in it.
Right.
So all these businesses closed down. So what Upstate decided was, all right, since there's no businesses available, we will pay a contractual fee to somebody to do the service. And the contractual fee thankfully makes us money. It's not $20. It's a set rate every day. So if we do 50 transports for them or we do one transport for them, it's a set rate every day. And it's a set revenue stream that the agency didn't have in the past. It's an alternative program that is bringing funding in towards the core mission, which is providing an ambulance service to the residents of Herkimer County.
So what's nice is that you're helping the residents, like you said. The service is helping you because you're pulling in some revenue, and you're helping the hospital. It sounds like a win-win for everybody, and it might be something. If anyone out there is listening, for our local hospitals, maybe that would be a great service for you to initiate with them.
That's exactly it. We're hoping to approach Bassett Healthcare Network to see if this is a service that is working in the Syracuse region. We're hoping to approach Bassett locally to see if we can entertain them with that same contractual agreement, because there's no way for a small business to do that service specifically and survive. It would have to be some kind of additional contractual infusion of additional money to make from the agency that wants it, basically, Bassett.
Well, they've got a lot of facilities, so you might be pretty busy. I mean, you're talking Cooperstown to, all over Dallsville.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully someone is listening, and perhaps I'll help.
Yep. And currently we do provide non-emergency transport via ambulance for Little Falls Hospital. We do that currently. But the patients that I'm specifically mentioning for the ambulette, they don't meet what's called necessity for an ambulance. They meet a lower level of care requirement, and that's what this ambulette provides, basically.
Okay.
What kind of services can you do in there? Do you provide? What kind of equipment do you have in the ambulette? See, it's an equipment question for Bear. Did you see him perk up?
So it's a stretcher mounted vehicle. We have one of our ambulance stretchers is actually mounted into it. So we're putting people on that. And then also it's also capable for wheelchairs. There's a wheelchair lift in it. Plus we run, one of our drivers is actually a paramedic. So he has AD. We require AD, CPR, and training in case something ever happens. The person's loved one that we're transporting can get definitive care while they're still in that vehicle. So we have an AED plus also a little bit of supplies just in there in case something ever happens.
But mostly the people are not in an emergency situation.
No, that's the only.
Which is that's good.
That's a good thing.
Yeah,
going back home.
Very good. Very, very good. Not sitting in the hallway at the emergency room, which I've seen too much of in my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, that's amazing. And I also want to I bring this up. You are not funded by the county in any way?
Correct.
Okay. So do you have some sort of a business plan in place?
Yeah. So that brings up a good topic. When it comes to EMS, emergency medical services, which is what MOVAC provides via ambulance. The state of New York doesn't recognize EMS as what they define as an essential service.
What?
That's amazing.
It's pretty surprising.
Right.
There's no local law or genuine municipal law that requires a township, a village, or a municipality to provide ambulance service.
Well, we need to change that.
Yeah.
You have to provide police, you have to provide fire, but you don't have to provide EMS. So it's not viewed as essential. So when it comes to grants, when it comes to funding, EMS is very much lower on the totem pole of availability for funding. There's all sorts of grants out there for fire. There's all sorts of grants out there for police, but EMS is non-existent.
That's just hard to believe.
That's sad.
Yeah.
So when you mention our plan, this kind of goes into, the part of our plan is getting this awareness out throughout the state and to hopefully push forward and get this changed to make EMS essential. And by it being essential, it would be taxpayer funded. It would be, or there would be some form of taxpayer funds going into the service. The service wouldn't just be reliant on reimbursements. So what part of our plan is all the townships and villages that we cover is to ask the local governments for a line item out of their budget, whether that's $2,000, whether that's $5,000, whether that's $5. We're simply asking for just to be included into a line item.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Could be like a subscription fee.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite
That would work.
honestly, a lot of these folks making these decisions. I mean, if God forbid somebody had a heart attack or an emergency situation, you're going to pick them up, right? I mean, so that's
Absolutely.
important
Absolutely.
to bring up.
Yep.
I think.
Absolutely. And so we've had some success with some of the townships and villages where they have put that line item in. And I believe like our figure, we want it to be right around $5 a person, that's within that village or township. Some are doing $1, some are doing $3, whatever they could do. Some are doing nothing despite repeated efforts to try to get that to change and get them to understand like that.
Is that on a yearly basis?
Yeah.
$5 per, that's what you're
So
shooting for? Okay.
if I'm a taxpayer, and I would be willing to bet if this were brought up to the taxpayers, they'd vote yes.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But then the question would be if that village or township or whoever it may be has that funding available in their budget too, because I know that there's that difficult stance as well with some of the townships that we cover.
But
So
well, I don't know. I'm pontificating, and perhaps I shouldn't.
Well, everybody's broke. And so here comes
That's
another
right.
expense, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
You know,
if
that's
I'm
what
a
it is.
taxpayer and this is presented to me as a line item, and yeah, my taxes are going to go up $5, or $5 per person in my household. Even I'm going to say yes without even thinking twice.
to help support the local
Mhm.
ambulance, because that local ambulance guarantees you a response. Our average response time is right around 6 minutes.
That's
And
great.
and that's below the national average, which is 8 minutes.
And that's your average. So considering sometimes you're going,
Correct.
far and wide. So
Yes.
if your average
Is
is 6 minutes, that is amazing.
And that's what keeps that local ambulance local. If we were to close up shop, God forbid, those ambulances wouldn't be coming out of Herkimer anymore. And you'd see response times of 20, 30 minutes. That's what happens, in other areas of the state and the country.
Mm.
There's been, and this is just another figure I did throw at you. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm close with the number. There's upwards of 45 ambulance corps throughout New York State that have closed in the last 3 years because of funding problems.
Yeah. So,
I've heard a lot of close, just like the volunteer fire departments are having the same kind of issue because nobody's volunteering anymore.
Correct.
So, yeah.
yeah, the way things are in the economy is tough. I get that, but we need to rally together as local citizens to say we want this protection, because there's going to come a time, if we don't stand up and do something now, there's going to come a time that somebody or everybody's going to know somebody who lost a loved one because emergency service couldn't make it in time.
Well, think of the
Yes.
difference between 6 minutes and 30 minutes
Yeah, right.
and what's going to happen to you in that 24-minute period.
Correct.
Yes.
And how many people are going to try to stuff their own family member in a car and drive them as fast as they can
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
which might be even more dangerous for the individual.
Well, the way you drive,
Well,
Michelle, but yeah.
yes,
Okay, all right.
I will say
The risk level goes way up.
my big issue is parking, but
Yeah, you went viral there once.
Yeah.
On the parallel park. Yeah,
Yeah, it was not good. Dave was witness. But anyway, I digress.
You mentioned, I just add this too. You mentioned before that it's not just a ride anymore. When you transport somebody, when we put somebody in the ambulance, it's not just a ride. It's the care that's being provided. It's the life-saving equipment that's in the back of the ambulance. And I've been doing this now for 20 years. How long you been doing it?
Right about 15 years
Yeah.
now.
And I mean, I could tell you hundreds and hundreds of people that I've directly saved. There's no question in my mind that I saved their life with the equipment that I had or the services that I had available to me via the ambulance or the helicopter or whatever it was, because of what we can do. It's important. It's truly important for public safety, and you guys get this.
Yeah.
But
Well, it takes a certain person too. I know that's not a job I could do.
correct.
I mean, you wouldn't. Not that I'm afraid of blood or anything. It's just just the thought of it. you
Yeah.
know? I don't
It-
want anything to do with
It's
it.
a lot of responsibility for sure and pressure.
He's a fireman. I'm a fireman. I'm a police officer. So you get these people that are in these types of services that kind of
It's
cross
just
branch over
in your
to-
DNA
Yeah.
Yes.
to help. And I commend you both for that so much. That's just absolutely an amazing quality to have as an individual. I'm going to get teared up here just even talking about it. But
None of that.
yeah.
I don't
and-
have Kleenex on
and-
set.
and I also want
Thank
to
you, though.
point out, and I don't need to get into specifics, but the folks that are working with you alongside you and that are saving your lives, listeners, are not making much more than minimum wage. So it really truly takes a special person to have this passion to help others. And I think that's important to bring up
Yeah.
because
Well, you heard it. They have other jobs
Yeah,
too
yeah.
that they have to do.
yeah, they
So,
they have to and to
Yeah,
support
to
their
make-
families and
Yeah.
to do so. That's another sad state. It would be great if you could get to a point where you could just employ people full time and that's their job. It would be wonderful if we could ever get there. And I think that we need to do this more often, have this conversation more often. And I think that I'll do whatever I can to help you get your message out.
Sure.
Um,
you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, because folks need to hear about it. You know, the folks that are not paying for this and whatever their stance is because they believe it's taxpayer money and we can't afford it and this and that, they need to stop and realize, well, who do you want to pick you up when you're having a heart attack? And the answer is not nobody. I
Yeah.
can tell you that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So,
Well, these guys aren't the ones that pick me up, but
oh,
I was picked up last year, and
Oh,
so
that's
it's
right.
it's an important thing.
Yeah.
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 You don't think about every day.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're second due for Little Falls. So if Little Falls has a fire or anything like that, their people on their ambulance are involved with putting the fire out. We come in and provide ambulance coverage for the city
Right.
when that occurs. And this is same thing for Ilion. Ilion
Yep.
has an ambulance, but they're a fire department first, when a fire occurs. So they would expect us to come in and provide ambulance transport. And we do. And we work very well with Little Falls and Ilion Fire Department. They're great agencies.
But if you live in Herkimer, right? You're
That's
it.
We're
You're
at.
it, yeah.
We're at. And
So there are other municipalities where you are
yeah,
it.
Yes.
when we need help, it's very rare that we receive it, because the other agencies are so far away. So one of the agencies that helps us the most is Ilion Ambulance, is Ilion Fire Department. But when all of our ambulances are out, and then there's another call coming in, and we need the help, it just doesn't occur.
Crickets.
It's crickets.
Mhm.
There's nobody around to help us. So
Wow.
we have to quickly figure something out, staff another ambulance, or turn the call over real quick or whatnot to figure it out. So
That's why you see those bodies along the road. Yeah. Get another higher priority. You're out.
Oh, I wish I had a magic wand.
There'd be a lot of problems we could fix, right?
Oh,
If we did,
absolutely, and
yeah.
yeah, Well, I want to thank you both for coming on so very much. And I want to stress to my listeners, to our listeners, that if you're, taking the time to hear this and you get your postcard in the mail, please take the time to make a donation, even if it's just a couple of dollars. It's going to go so far.
It does.
It's so
really
important. And we need to support MOVAC. And just remember that it could be you or one of your loved ones that are going to rely on these guys someday. So let's do all we can to keep them here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you. Thank
I
you.
love it.
yeah, great. And we're going to continue this conversation,
Sure. Yeah.
but
Yes.
Love
I-
to be back.
absolutely great. So thank you so much. And I also want to mention that you're graciously doing a training at the Herkimer County Chamber of Commerce. And
I saw that.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that all
it's
about?
CPR and
CPR training?
defibrillator, AED, right?
I believe it's
she's-
CPR, AED, and first aid. Correct?
Yes, first aid. And it's on Saturday the 19th.
Yes.
From 10 to 2, lunch will be served. So, hey, you know what? And the cost is $20 per person, but this is going to be required of so many people that, even lifeguards need to get CPR training. So I'm hoping we do this more than once.
Well, even caregivers. Good
care,
idea. If you're giving care
Daycare.
to anybody.
Yeah.
Daycare.
All of
Yeah.
it. So if you're in need of your CPR certificate, this is going to be official. So, please reach out to us. You can register on the Herkimer County website. It's herkimercountychamber.com. You'll see a screen pop up, or go to the events and you can get to it that way.
Are you going to have these cookies there?
I can arrange for that.
Yeah, just as part of the meal. Yeah, just kidding.
Or also give us a call at 315-866-7820. It's super important. The service is amazing. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. So
Correct.
you're not receiving
Yes.
payment for this
Correct.
and you're coming out.
Yep.
So again, we need to keep you guys around.
Yeah, and the $20 it only goes to the American Heart Association. That's what they charge to actually produce a card. So normally, if you take a CPR course, you can expect to pay about $50, $60, $70 sometimes. And,
Yeah.
and
So this is a bargain.
yeah,
It's a huge
yes.
bargain.
Wow.
And if we see a good turnout, we've already had several phone calls, but if we see a need for this, we want to continue it on a regular
Sure,
basis. So
absolutely. Yep.
yeah, so I want
I like
to
it.
thank you again for coming, and we're going to continue this conversation. I'm going to advocate for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
And
having
I
us.
want to thank all of our listeners today. And again, please keep MOVAC in your thoughts
Yes.
and let's help keep them around. Thank you so much. It's Michelle Hummel with the Herkimer County Chamber of Commerce. Have a great day.